The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled light over the park bench where Daniel sat, dressed in an understated suit that only hinted at his immense wealth. He was here to clear his mind, to take a break from the relentless demands of his business empire. The park had become a rare refuge for him, a place where no one recognized the billionaire, where he could blend in unnoticed and unbothered. As he sipped his coffee, his eyes wandered to a group of children playing by a worn-out fountain. They were laughing, chasing one another, their dirty clothes and unkempt hair telling the story of lives far different from his own. He watched them for a moment, feeling an inexplicable tug in his chest, a pull that he couldn't quite place. It was strange. He had walked through this park dozens of times, seen homeless people, struggling families, but today felt different. His gaze stopped on a young girl sitting a little apart from the others, drawing something in the dirt with a stick. She looked to be about 15 or maybe 16, but her eyes held the weight of someone much older, someone who had seen far too much of life already. Her clothes were ragged, her face streaked with dirt, but there was something in her posture, a quiet strength that intrigued him. And then, as she reached up to brush her hair aside, Daniel saw it. A birthmark on her neck. His heart stopped. The mark was small, almost insignificant, but unmistakable. It was the same birthmark his ex-girlfriend, Leah, had. Daniel's mind began to race. Memories of Leah flooded back, unbidden and sharp. They had been so in love once, but their relationship had been volatile, marked by intense passion and equally intense fights. He remembered how she would storm out of the apartment after one of their arguments, leaving him to wonder if they'd ever be able to make things work. In the end, they couldn't. They broke up, and that was the last time he had heard from her. A short-term breakup, they had both thought, something that would blow over with time. But time did its own thing, as it often does. They grew distant, and their love story was lost to the chaos of life. He had never known that she was pregnant. Daniel stood up, his body moving before his mind could fully process what was happening. He walked toward the girl, his heart pounding in his chest, 1,000 thoughts swirling in his head. As he approached her, she looked up, startled by the sight of a stranger looming over her. Her eyes, those familiar eyes, met his, and Daniel felt a lump rise in his throat. "Hey there," he said, his voice gentle, almost shaky. "I'm sorry to bother you, but can I ask your name?" The girl hesitated, eyeing him warily. She was used to being overlooked, ignored, and now this well-dressed man was suddenly interested in her. She glanced over at the other kids, but they were too busy playing to notice. "Sarah," she finally replied, her voice soft but steady. "Sarah," Daniel repeated, the name rolling off his tongue as if he had known it all his life. "That's a beautiful name." He paused, unsure of how to ask the next question without sounding intrusive. "I couldn't help but notice the birthmark on your neck. Might someone I knew a long time ago have had the same one?" Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. "My mom had it too." Daniel swallowed hard. What was your mother's name?" "Leah," she said quietly, turning her eyes back to the ground, as if the name held too much weight for her to say aloud. Daniel felt the world shift beneath his feet. His legs suddenly felt weak, and he had to sit down beside her on the bench to steady himself. Tears welled up in his eyes, threatening to spill over, but he blinked them back. He hadn't heard that name in so long, and now it felt like a ghost from his past had come to haunt him in the most unexpected way. "Leah," he whispered, more to himself than to her. She was my... He struggled to find the words. "She was my girlfriend a long time ago." Sarah looked at him, confusion flickering across her face. "You knew my mom?" Daniel nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I knew her. But I didn't know she had a daughter. I didn't know about you." Sarah's expression hardened. "Yeah, well, she didn't talk much about the past. She died a few years ago. Car accident." She said the words flatly, as if they were just another fact of life, another hardship she had to endure. Daniel felt like the wind had been knocked out of him. Leah was gone. He hadn't known. He hadn't been there for her. He hadn't been there for their daughter. A tidal wave of guilt washed over him. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I had no idea." Sarah shrugged, her eyes still fixed on the ground. "It's fine. I've been on my own for a while now." Daniel's heart broke at those words. His daughter, his own flesh and blood, had been living on the streets, homeless and alone, while he had been living a life of luxury. How could he have been so blind? How could he not have known? "I don't know how to say this," Daniel began, his voice trembling, "but I think I'm your father." Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. "What?" "I know this is a lot to take in," Daniel said quickly, trying to explain, "but your mother and we were together a long time ago. We broke up, and I didn't know she was pregnant. If I had known, I would have been there. I swear, I would have done everything I could." Sarah stared at him, her mind reeling. "You're my father?" Daniel nodded, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. "Yes, Sarah. I'm your father." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Sarah's emotions swirled inside her, anger, confusion, disbelief, and a strange flickering sense of hope. She had spent her entire life wondering about her father, imagining what he might be like, but she had never expected this. "You left us," Sarah said, her voice shaking with a mix of pain and accusation. Daniel's heart broke at the words. "I didn't know," he repeated softly. "I would never have left if I had known." There was a long silence as Sarah absorbed everything. She wanted to be angry, to scream at him for not being there, for letting her and her mother struggle, but she could see the pain in his eyes, the guilt that weighed heavily on him, and she realized in that moment that he was telling the truth. Finally, Daniel reached out tentatively, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm here now," he said quietly, "and I want to make things right. I want to get to know you, Sarah. I want to be the father I should have been all along." Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of emotions. She wasn't sure what to feel, anger, relief, hope, but in that moment, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be alone anymore. They sat together in silence for a while, both of them trying to process the enormity of what had just happened. Eventually, Daniel stood up and offered her his hand. "Come with me," he said gently. "You don't have to live like this anymore. Let me take care of you." Sarah hesitated for a moment, but then, slowly, she placed her hand in his. Together, they walked out of the park, leaving behind the past and stepping into a future neither of them could have ever anticipated. In this touching story, we witness how life's unexpected twists and turns can lead to powerful moments of redemption and healing. Daniel, once consumed by the demands of his business empire, found that true wealth lies not in material possessions but in the bonds of family and the connections we nurture. His journey to reconnect with Sarah teaches us the importance of facing our past, seeking forgiveness, and making amends when given a second chance. No matter how lost or broken relationships may seem, love and commitment can bring restoration and hope. Sarah's story is one of resilience and strength, reminding us that even in the face of hardship, there is always room for hope and growth. Her ability to open her heart to the possibility of family again, despite the pain of loss and abandonment, is an inspiration to anyone who has ever felt alone. Her transformation from a girl living on the streets to a young woman with purpose and a bright future shows us that no matter our circumstances, with the right support and determination, we can rise above and achieve great things. This story also encourages us to reflect on the power of love, not only in romantic relationships but also in familial bonds. Daniel's commitment to becoming the father he should have been and Sarah's journey to trust him again demonstrates that love is not always easy, but it is always worth fighting for. Whether we are repairing old wounds or building new connections, love has the ability to heal and transform lives in ways we never thought possible. If this story touched your heart and inspired you in any way, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel for more powerful, uplifting stories like this one. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. We truly appreciate your support, and we look forward to sharing more incredible tales of love, redemption, and second chances with you. Thank you for watching, and may you be blessed.